Right now, there's exactly one human species on the entire planet. Just one. You're reading this as part of it. And so is every single person you've ever met, every stranger on every street, in every country, on every continent. And that feels normal. Obvious, even. Except it's not. For almost the entire history of our genus, that was never true. There were multiple human species walking the earth at the same time, sometimes several of them at once, sometimes sharing the same valleys, the same rivers, even the same caves. This is older than agriculture, older than cities, older than the wheel by a margin, so large the wheel practically counts as yesterday. So the question is this: what happened to all the other humans? Where did they go, and why are we the only ones who made it? Let's go back to the beginning. About 2 million years ago, Africa was crowded. Not with people like us, but with early human relatives, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo rudolfensis, different species, different skulls, different tools, sometimes living in the same regions at overlapping times. Homo erectus was the real trailblazer. It stood up, walked out of Africa, and spread across Asia and Europe. That's not a metaphor. It physically got there first. Then evolution kept branching and branching, like a tree that refuses to grow just one trunk. Fast forward, and you get Homo heidelbergensis in Europe and Africa, a species some scientists think may be the last common ancestor of both us and the Neanderthals. Around 400,000 years ago, that lineage split. One branch adapted to the cold forests of Ice Age Europe and became the Neanderthals. Another branch stayed in Africa and eventually became us, Homo sapiens. Here's what makes this so important. For most of our species' existence, we were not alone. Not even close. By around 300,000 years ago, fossils from a site in Morocco called Jebel Irhoud show early Homo sapiens already walking around with faces recognizably like ours. But at that exact same time, Neanderthals were thriving in Europe and the Middle East. And in Asia, there was another group entirely, the Denisovans. We didn't even know Denisovans existed until 2010. Scientists sequencing DNA from a tiny finger bone found in a Siberian cave realized it belonged to a human species science had never identified before. One bone, an entire lost branch of humanity, hiding in a single finger. Think about that. And it gets weirder. On the island of Flores, in Indonesia, archaeologists found the remains of a human species barely a meter tall. They nicknamed it the hobbit. Homo floresiensis lived there until roughly 50,000 years ago, isolated on an island, evolving into a miniature version of a human, hunting pygmy elephants with stone tools. Meanwhile, in South Africa, in a cave system called Rising Star, researchers found the bones of yet another species, Homo naledi, a strange mix of primitive and modern features, maybe intentionally placing their dead deep underground in near-total darkness. Nobody expected that. Nobody's fully explained it. So picture the map. At one single moment, roughly 60,000 years ago, you've got Homo sapiens in Africa and spreading into Asia. Neanderthals across Europe and Middle East. Denisovans in Asia. Hobbits in Indonesia. Naledi possibly still alive in southern Africa. 5 or more human species. On one planet. At the same time. And now there's one. Here's the but. Because it's not just that other species existed. It's that we met them. When scientists first sequenced the Neanderthal genome in 2010, they found something nobody expected. Pieces of Neanderthal DNA sitting inside modern human genomes. Not a little. Most people with non-African ancestry carry somewhere between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA today. That's not a folktale. That's in your cells right now. Same story with the Denisovans. Some populations in Papua New Guinea and parts of Asia carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA, likely responsible for genetic adaptations like better oxygen efficiency at high altitude in Tibetan populations. So we didn't just coexist with other human species. We had families with them. But, and here's where it turns dark, coexistence didn't last. Neanderthals vanish from the fossil record around 40,000 years ago. The hobbits disappear around 50,000 years ago. Denisovans fade out somewhere close to that same window. Homo Naledi's exact timeline is still being pieced together, but the pattern is unmistakable. Every other human species blinks out within roughly the same tight stretch of time that Homo sapiens is expanding across the globe. That timing is not a coincidence anyone's comfortable with. There are theories. Climate stress from the fluctuating ice age. Competition for the same shrinking resources. Small, isolated populations that simply couldn't sustain their numbers. Some researchers point to direct competition with sapiens. Not necessarily violent conquest, but us being slightly better at cooperating in larger groups, trading over longer distances, adapting faster. And some evidence suggests something sadder, assimilation. Neanderthal populations may not have been wiped out so much as absorbed, interbred into a growing sapiens population until there simply weren't enough pure Neanderthals left to count as a separate group. Here's what makes this genuinely staggering. We may not be the species that won. We might just be the branch that swallowed all the others. Same tree. We just happen to be the ones still standing. Think about that the next time someone says humans conquered the planet like it was some grand campaign. It might have been slower, messier, and way more intimate than that. Less an invasion, more slow absorption spread across tens of thousands of years and countless generations you'll never know the names of. So here's the full picture. 2 million years ago, the human family tree splits into a dozen branches. Erectus spreads across continents. Heidelbergensis splits into Neanderthals and us. Denisovans branch off in Asia. Hobbits shrink down on an island. Naledi buries its dead in the dark. For a while, 5 or more human species share this one small planet. Then we meet them. We trade with them. We have children with them. And then, one by one, over tens of thousands of years, they disappear, some through extinction, some, it seems, by quietly becoming part of us. Until only one branch was left standing. Ours. So back to right now. You, reading this. Your DNA might be carrying a small, silent fragment of a species that vanished 40,000 years ago. A whole lineage of humans that no longer technically exists. Except it does, scattered in pieces, inside billions of people who have no idea it's there. Being the last human species doesn't mean we're the ones who are better. It might just mean we're the ones who happen to survive long enough to ask the question. If that blows your mind a little, there's a lot more where this came from.